Is It Worth It? The Film Review Podcast presents Road to the Oscars. Join me, David Long, on this journey as we talk all things Oscars before the big event, the 94th Academy Awards, on Sunday the 27th of March, 2022. So sit back, relax, and enjoy Road to the Oscars. Hello and welcome to Series 3, Episode 1 of Road to the Oscars. My name is David Long and I am your host. Thank you for joining me on this journey as we count down the days to the 94th Academy Awards on the 27th of March 2022 in sunny Los Angeles, US of A. If you love award season, then you, my friend, are in the right place. Over the next few months, join me and a variety of guests as we take a deep dive into this year's awards season. We will discuss a variety of categories. We will analyse those precursors, but most importantly, we will keep you, the listener, informed about all things Oscars. On today's episode, we will be tackling the biggest category of them all, Best Picture. This season's episode is much later in the calendar than last year, allowing us to have a clearer insight into how the Best Picture 10 may look. At the moment, it certainly looks like a three-headed monster in terms of the win between The Power of the Dog, West Side Story, and Belfast. However, the exact nature of the 10 nominees is still very much open for debate. On this episode, we will discuss the potential nominees in all their glory and predict what may win come Oscars Sunday. So get comfortable and get ready for the first in this year's Road to the Oscars series. So, it gives me great pleasure to introduce my first guest on this year's Road to the Oscars series. It's Oscars pundit, YouTuber, and friend of the show, Max Joseph. Max, how art thou?
You're too good to me. Thou art good. I'm good. I'm so happy to see your face and be back on your show. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely wonderful to have you here. Obviously a big fan of your work, and we've got a roller coaster of an award season so far. A long way to go as well. Before we dive into the Best Picture puzzle, I just want to give you an opportunity to tell our lovely listeners where they can find all your wonderful work and what all your socials are.
Definitely. So I'm obviously on YouTube, youtube.com/MaxJosephFilmPerson, and then social, Twitter, Instagram, and letterboxed at mjoseph492. That's pretty much everything, I think.
Fantastic. And I really do recommend you give Max a follow. So Max, as I said, it's great to have you back on the show to study this Best Picture race. Before we dive into that, I just want to pick your brain on awards season so far, what you've made of it, and dare I ask, what's the most dramatic and or surprising thing we've seen so far this award season?
Yeah, it's a really interesting season. There seems to be that, at least for my brain, that kind of Nomadland Chloe Zhao feel of like, Jane Campion's kind of dominating right now, as is The Power of the Dog as far as like wins are concerned, because I believe Power of the Dog I think has 25 wins right now, and Belfast is in second, tied with Licorice Pizza at 5, I think.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to like director, at least last time I did my math, I think Jane Campion is like 38 wins. Yeah. Kenneth Branagh has 1.
Yeah.
So it's giving me like the Nomadland feel. But like, then you have like your tech categories. You got the Dune and you have West Side Story competing in a lot of the tech. I'm also very happy that there's 2 major musicals fighting for Best Picture right now. I'm really, really excited for that as an actor. That makes me very, very happy. One of the things you said was dramatic and or surprising thing. I think I'm trying to go back and see what, like, I'm going back in my list and seeing, like, oh, what missed. What was it? There was a Ace Eddie that missed. I think it was West Side Story that missed.
Yes, that's correct.
That to me was shocking. That was number 2 behind the best animated movie of the year, missing the Golden Globes, which is Missiles versus Machines. Yes. And that missing globe is massive and doesn't make any sense to me. And in the history of the award, if you weren't nominated for Globe, you've never won the Best Picture at the Oscars. And obviously, if people watch my channel, they know that animated is my favorite category. So I'm very nervous about Mitchell's missing. Out of all of the things, that was the most shocking, believe it or not. Second was probably West Side missing cinematography. I thought that was like almost a shoo-in for a nomination, at least for Janis Kaminski. So those are my 2 big ones.
Yeah, and finally, could I just pick your brain? What did you think of, I know this isn't Best Picture related, but I couldn't resist. Sure. What did you think of Kristen Stewart missing the SAG? Was that...
yes. Sorry. Absolutely.
That was, for me, my jaw hit the floor. On the podcast, I said that she was a slam dunk nomination in a multiple universe theory in every universe, and it looks like she might not even get the Oscar nomination in this universe. It's crazy.
That is correct. And Nicole Kidman winning, that was surprising. But Kristen Stewart missing SAG was massive. I think, unfortunately, her chances just kind of keep going down and down. Yeah. But it's possible. She definitely still has a shot. Yeah, that was a big one too. There were a few weird ones. That is definitely one of them. She's and Rachel Zegler, I was really hoping she'd get in. But she's Kristen Stewart can still get BAFTA.
Yeah, I actually think she'll miss BAFTA. Which I've been predicting for quite a while. But the crazy thing about award season is you just don't know what's going to happen. But a few things have happened. So let's dive into those, Max. And one of the first things to mention is that the Pga Nominees Are Out. That's the Producers Guild of America, a huge precursor for the Oscars. Probably, I would say... in my opinion, one of the most important, and the crossover stats tend to suggest that. So I'll briefly run through the nominees, the 10 nominees for the Producers Guild of America Awards. The ones that were nominated were Being the Ricardos, Belfast, Coda, Don't Look Up, Dune, King Richard, Licorice Pizza, The Power of the Dog, Tick Tick Boom, and West Side Story. Max, what did you make of this 10, and are you playing it safe? Is this the Oscars 10?
Okay, so I'm going to answer this in a few ways. So first, a fun stat for everyone who listens is that PGA is 157 out of 189 at predicting the eventual Best Picture nominee or winner. And it would be out of 199, but the first 2 years were only winners. There were no nominees. But they happened to choose the Best Picture anyway. So just to give you like perspective of how important the PGA nominations are. So that is huge. The only one that I have missing, so if we're getting down to it, I have 9 of them in.
Okay.
The one I don't have is Being the Ricardos. That's my one that I'm like, I don't know. I think that they could go that way. I mean, they only, in 2019, they got all of the nominees. In 2018, they got all the nominees. But in 2017, they didn't have 2 of them. And then another year of all of them. So, like, it's pretty, they'll have at least 8. At least.
Yeah, I agree.
And I have to imagine the only ones that are, like, on the fence is probably Tick Tick Boom, but not for a good reason. Like, it still has 10 really big nominees or wins in, like, Globe, BAFTA, PGA, it has all the things that it needs, but I don't know what that 10th slot is going to be, because it could be being the Ricardos. It could also be Drive My Car. It could be Nightmare Alley. They might throw a wrench and just like go Spencer, you know?
Wow,
like,
yeah, that would be a surprise.
Yeah, or I mean, we'll get more into it, but maybe a certain Marvel Cinematic Universe movie. We'll find out. We'll talk about that soon, I'm sure.
I mean, for me, I've got a solid 8, and the two that are sort of on the fence are Being the Ricardos and Tick, Tick, Boom. And
yeah, I agree.
I've got to be honest, my Tick, Tick, Boom being on the fence is because I was blown away by Andrew Garfield, but I wasn't blown away by the overall piece. I thought it could have been a little bit better. So I've got to take my biased hat off and look at it from, it's doing very, very well in the precursors. It's building a very, very good resume. Obviously, we have the Bafta nominations coming up. They're out on the 3rd of February. That's going to be absolutely fascinating.
Huge.
I think BAFTA has become more important in recent years. I don't know if you would tend to agree. They seem to have made some very big calls in terms of people they've nominated and awarded, and then the Oscars have sort of tended to follow suit. So, what are we doing on today's episode? Well, we are obviously talking about Best Picture. We have 13 films we're going to have a look at in a little detail, but Max, we only have 10 places. We've had a little look at what's on the outside looking in. Are there any other big names, big films that you think are on the outside that might be looking in? I'm hinting at a couple here.
The only ones that have like the quote stats that I can see, I thought maybe Cyrano was going to have a shot, but it doesn't look like it. I'm still praying for Mass, which is the best movie of the year, by the way. Yeah. I know it's not going to happen, which is just disgusting, but they love Wes Anderson's a big hit. I could see French Dispatch. I could definitely see House of Gucci happening.
Yeah, I wanted to pick your brain on that.
Yeah.
Were you a fan of House of Gucci? The Gooch.
I thought it was a fine movie. Like, there's and again, if people watch my channel, I don't really talk bad about movies, and I don't think it's a bad movie by any means, but it just didn't really do anything for me. Yeah. I know many people who really loved it, which is awesome. It just didn't do what I wanted. It didn't hit the way I wanted it to. But I'm glad it did for some people.
The one thing I would say about House of Gucci, it was one of my most anticipated films of the year, with the cast, with the director, with the premise. And I had issues with House of Gucci, but when House of Gucci got that SAG Ensemble nod, I thought that was a real sign of strength. But then obviously it misses the PGA, so I'm now thinking, is that SAG Ensemble actually just a tick in the box for Lady Gaga, Jared Leto?
It's a crazy cast. I think that's kind of what it is. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. But the others that we could mention, obviously you've got these ideas, and I wouldn't be disappointed. You've got 2 big blockbusters on the outside that, particularly No Time to Die did very well on BAFTA long list. Yeah. No Time to Die, Spider-Man No Way Home. Is there any universe when these sneak in at that 10th spot?
There's a universe, absolutely. As if you've watched Spider-Man, there's the multiverse. I mean, anything's possible. Ace Eddie has No Time to Die. It has ADG, SDSA, CDG, MUAH, MPSA. So like, it has good numbers, but I think it needed, unless it gets BAFTA, I would be pretty surprised. I really like following, this is one of my favorites. I like following AFI's top 10.
Yes.
That is one of the biggest, almost as much as the PGAs. They are incredibly accurate. Last year, they missed 2. Year before, 1. Year before, 2. Year before, 1, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. Like, next to the PGA, they're really close.
Yeah. And we'll get onto that in some of the stats we've got. We've got a list of people who have obviously made that award. I think the ones on the outside looking in, you've got Spider-Man No Way Home, House of Gucci. I had Spencer. I loved Spencer. I'll just say that briefly.
Me too.
I thought Spencer was going to get in the 10. There's nothing to suggest that it will get in the 10. Another one that I put on the list, which has got absolutely no chance, but was actually the betting favourite and spoke about as a serious awards contender, and that's In the Heights. That seems
my God. Yes.
Yeah. That just seems to have vanished. I know a lot of people were big fans of that movie. So what we're going to do, Max, is we're going to dive in. We're going to analyse these films one by one in a little bit more detail. The first thing to say, basically, is this Oscars race, to me and to the bookmakers, looks like a bit of a three-headed monster between The Power of the Dog, West Side Story, and Belfast. And for those of you who understand betting odds, The Power of the Dog is the 7-4 favourite, West Side Story is 5-2 second favourite, and then Belfast is the third favourite at 11-4. That is incredibly close. In other seasons, things like Nomadland have been much shorter price. The runners in behind have been much bigger. So it looks like a three-headed monster. And then after that, you've got a number of films at 14-1 and bigger prices, all the way out to Being the Ricardos, which is a 50-1 shot to win Best Picture. And Being the Ricardos is the first film we're going to have a look at. And Being the Ricardos follows Lucy and Desi as they face a crisis that could end their careers and another that could end their marriage. This is distributed by Amazon Studios. It's directed by Aaron Sorkin. It stars Nicole Kidman, Javier Bardem, and J.K. Simmons. I actually watched this film today. I'll say I was a big fan of it, and the thing I really want to say was Nicole Kidman. I was surprised on paper that she won the Globe, but when I saw her performance, I was less surprised. I thought her performance, and Javier Bardem and J.K. Simmons actually, was absolutely brilliant. What do you make of Being the Ricardos, and what's its resume like for awards season?
Yeah, I mean, okay, so it has what? It has Golden Globe screenplay. It's made 2 BAFTA long lists, but the only nominees that it has are screenplay for Globes, PGA, which is obviously the big one, WGA, which is good, and a set design, which makes sense. So, like, yeah, the big one there is the PGA. That's the thing that stands out. That's the one where I'm like, oh, well, that kind of doesn't make sense. Like, I thought that it would be Tragedy of Macbeth. Like, that's the one that makes more sense to me to kind of put in, but it missed PGA. But, like, if, again, I really go by Best Picture of, like, PGA and AFI.
Yeah.
So, Being the Ricardos has PGA, AFI has Tragedy of Macbeth.
Yes.
So, which one do I go with? I think one of them is getting in. So, Being the Ricardos, like, I think Nicole Kidman is definitely either going to win or, I mean, she's getting nominated. It's a good movie. Like, it's fine. I do think Oscar voters are going to really like it a lot. But I don't see it as, I mean, if it's anything, it's definitely the 10th slot.
Yeah.
And if not that, it's going to be 11 or 12.
I would tend to agree. Obviously, Aaron Sorkin is a 4-time Oscar nominee, 1-time winner in screenplay. Nicole Kidman, 4 Oscar nominations, 1 win. Javier Bardem, 3 Oscar nominations, 1 win. So there is a narrative for the Academy liking this kind of movie, for liking Sorkin, for liking the people involved. But it's the thing about Being the Ricardos. I watched it today. It's very fresh in my mind. It's a film. Do you know what I mean? And it's, there's some films that you think any year, any season, that's getting in the 10, or depending on how many nominees there are, but that's getting the Best Picture nomination.
Totally.
I'm not convinced that Being the Ricardos is one of those slam dunk nominations every single year. Like you said, the PGA, that's a huge hit for it. That's a real sign of strength. And it brings us on to our next film, which is the Tragedy Macbeth, which you did mention.
Let me read that one, because I love Macbeth. So, a Scottish lord, even though I shouldn't say it because it's this, you can't say the Scottish play, but a Scottish lord becomes convinced by a trio of witches that he will become the next king of Scotland, and his ambitious wife supports him in his plans of seizing power. Distributed by Apple TV Plus, A24, has a perfect running time of hour 45, directed by the one and only Joel Coen, and stars arguably my favorite actor of all time, Denzel Washington.
Oh, wow.
Also one of my favorite one of my favorite male actors, one of my favorite female actors also, Frances McDormand. Man, this isn't necessarily about the best picture, but this should be sweeping cinematography.
I could not agree with you more.
There's literally no comparison for me. I don't understand anyone who has anything different than that. Even Dune. I love Dune. I think it's amazing. Yeah. Tragedy of Macbeth is a masterwork of cinematography. Every frame, if you pause it, you could frame it.
Yeah. You literally took the words out of my mouth. Regular listeners of the show will know that I say good cinematography, pause the film, frame what you see, what have you got? And
there you go.
Some of those shots in the Tragedy of Macbeth made my jaw hit the floor. I've seen this film twice. I saw it the first time at the London Film Festival. Me and Craig went to a local independent cinema recently, had a cheese board, and really enjoyed this film. In terms of its resume, it's got the American Film Institute Award, so it's got AFI Top 10 and National Board Review Top 10. So you've said how important that AFI is. And also, here's the narrative. I'm just thinking Joel Coen and Ethan Coen have each been nominated for a total of 14 Academy Awards and have won 4. Is there a narrative that the Academy love Joel Coen and that just sneaks him in that 10th spot?
I hope it gets in, personally.
Yeah, so do I, just because, Denzel is, like yourself, one of my favourite male actors. Yeah. Him doing Shakespeare, give me more of that.
Go ahead.
No, you please.
Catherine Hunter should be a frontrunner in this.
You are literally taking words out of my mouth. The physicality of her performance. Honestly, my jaw was hitting the floor. The gorgeous visuals, the physicality. Yeah.
She stole the movie from me, by the way.
Yeah. Me and Craig might be doing the Is It Worth It Awards this year, and she would be she would be in my supporting actress 5.
Yes, me too.
An incredible performance. And in terms of another film that's possibly in some people's 10, not in other people's 10, that's Tick, Tick, Boom. And this is definitely a contender for Best Picture. What's this film about? Well, on the cusp of his 30th birthday, a promising young theatre composer navigates love, friendship, and the pressures of life as an artist in New York City. This is distributed by Netflix, directed by Lin-Manuel Miranda, starring Andrew Garfield, Robin is that De Jesus?
Robin De Jesus.
Robin De Jesus, Alexandra Shipp. It's got a great cast. I wasn't blown away by Tick, Tick, Boom, but I tell you what it is doing. It is ticking the boxes for awards.
Nice. That was a really good one.
see what I did there?
That was brilliant.
Golden Globes nominated for Best Motion Picture Comedy or Musical. It obviously lost that. Critics' Choice nominated for Best Picture. Satellite Awards, it was nominated for Best Motion Picture Comedy or Musical. Top 10 at AFI, which you think, and I think the stats would suggest, is key. And it gets that PGA. Max, what's your thoughts on Tick, Tick, Boom?
This movie is perfect to me. I think it absolutely... I've also known the show for years. Like I've literally been singing this music since it came out. So to see it up on my screen was a very strange experience. It was like In the Heights. It was like seeing In the Heights for the first time. It was such a almost a religious experience, and they had cameo after cameo. But the cameos were all justified. They weren't there just to be like, oh, look, we have a cameo. It's like, no, they served a purpose and it worked. And everything had a reason. And I recently interviewed Stephen Levinson, the writer, the one, he wrote the screenplay for the film.
Oh, wow.
And everything that I hoped happened behind the scenes happened. And the way that there was just so much love in this movie made me so happy. Now, when it comes to, the awards, I think it's that 8, 9, 10 slot.
Yeah.
But you have Lin. That's automatically like people love Lin-Manuel as they should. PGA, critics, top 10, Ace Eddie, WGA, SDSA, MPSE. Andrew Garfield is contending to maybe win this Oscar.
Yeah.
It's a really, really great movie. And I don't think if it would have won over West Side Story, that would have been something.
Yeah, that would have been huge. Yeah.
And not something as like that would have been something, but like that would have been crazy.
Yeah.
So if we're comparing musicals, there's no way it's going to be West Side. But I think I've had it in my predictions for months. So I would be actually pretty shocked to see it miss at this point. It has everything it needs.
Yeah, I mean, there's one way of looking at this. I've been predicting that it will miss, and if I say it's going to miss, it's going to hit, because I'm...
Oh, perfect, and I feel great.
I'm notoriously terrible with my Oscars predictions, which is quite hilarious considering I'm doing a Road to the Oscars show. Before we move on to the next film, I just wanted to briefly say that I forgot to mention the betting odds on the films we've already had. Being the Ricardos is a 50-1 shot. Tragedy Macbeth is 40-1. Tick Tick Boom is 33-1. And the next film is also 33-1. And this is a very, very different film. It comes from Netflix, and it is Don't Look Up. 2 low-level astronomers must go on a giant media tour to warn mankind of an approaching comet that will destroy planet Earth. This is distributed by Netflix, directed by Adam McKay, starring Leonardo DiCaprio, Jennifer Lawrence, Meryl Streep, Jonah Hill, Cate Blanchett, Timothée Chalamet, and Mark Rylance. Talk about a cast. And the first thing I would say about this is what a tremendous cast. It gets that SAG Ensemble, the Screen Actors Guild, nominated for Outstanding Performance by a Cast in a Motion Picture. That was a big hit. Nominated for Best Picture at Critics' Choice. Comedy or Musical at the Globes, obviously lost. But also, Max, it gets the National Board Review Top 10 and an AFI Top 10 and a PGA. This is looking pretty locked in, don't you think?
Yeah. First of all, Vice did not work for me.
Okay.
Nor did... The Big Short.
Wow.
This is my favorite Adam McKay movie since Anchorman. I really, really, really liked this. Should it be running away and have more nominations than Tick Tick Boom or like Licorice Pizza? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
But it does. I mean, like you said, I'm like going through my list. It has like 14 as well. It also has Ace Eddie, which obviously film editing is huge when you're predicting the best picture. Has WGA, ADG, SDSA, CDG. It has like 14 or 15 of the big ones. So it's almost like you would be pretty ridiculous to not have it in. The only thing like it doesn't have is director. But what I have learned from Adam McKay movies is that you just don't count out Adam McKay, and you should just probably maybe have him in everywhere because he doesn't seem to miss.
Yeah.
Like, no one thought Vice was going to go as far as it did. No one thought The Big Short was going to go as far as it did. No one, I mean, to my knowledge, no one thought Don't Look Up was going to get this far and this many things, I think. Also, it didn't work for a lot of people that I've talked to.
I mean, the thing about Don't Look Up, briefly, is it's about as subtle as a herd of stampeding rhinoceros. You know, it's like being hit round the head with a large salmon. It's not a subtle movie, but I think it's got such an important message. I think it's got brilliant performances, and it's ticking the boxes. We talk about getting that resume. It's got a strong hand. I think you'd be a brave person not to have this in your Oscars 10. Don't Look Up is a 33-1 shot. That's its price to win Best Picture. Do I think it has a chance of winning Best Picture? Absolutely not. Do I think it will be nominated? Absolutely. It's just got it's ticking the boxes. It's got everything you need to see. And the next film on our list, my word, I hope this gets nominated. It's Coda. It's a 28 to 1 shot. Max, if you could just briefly summarize what this film is about.
Yes, as a coda, which is a child of deaf adults, Ruby is the only hearing person in her deaf community, and when the family's fishing business is threatened, Ruby finds herself torn between pursuing her love of music by wanting to go to Berklee College of Music and her fear of abandoning her parents. Distributed by Apple TV Plus, the best move they have made since becoming an Oscar contender. Directed by Sean Hayter, starring Emilia Jones, Troy Kotzer, Marlee Matlin, Daniel Durant. It's an unbelievable cast. I saw this at Sundance.
Oh wow!
And I was besides Mass, which again I refuse to ever shut up about that movie because it is. I was tangent, not really. I was making a top 10 movies literally of all time today, and I thought about putting Mass on there.
Oh wow!
Anyway, we can talk about that another time. Coda, you walk out of that movie and you cannot help but just feel amazing.
Yeah,
and I think. Like almost like Belfast, it's just a really, really great film that you want to celebrate. And it is just so, I don't think I've met a single person who didn't at least enjoy it.
Yes.
And also Troy Kotzer. Are you kidding me? I saw the movie at Sundance and I said, this is great. Troy Kotzer should be winning an Oscar.
Yeah,
if it wasn't for Jason Isaacs. And again, it got Globe. It has SAG, which was a massive nomination, especially for a cast that's not like big names necessarily, unlike Don't Look Up, House of Gucci, King Richard. You got Will Smith, Belfast, which is, I guess, closer to what Coda would be, but it has all 3 big BAFTAs, PGA, Critics, AFI, WGA, so it has the right things to get in, and it should get in. And I think that also Sean Hayter could pull an upset in director.
Oh wow, that's a bold prediction.
I think it's very possible. I really think that she could do it.
I mean, I would love to see it. Like Coda, when I first saw it, forgive me, I can't remember how long ago it was. The first thing I thought was, this just screams Best Picture.
Yes.
Like, this is surely one of the best films of the year. It's moving. It's tremendously acted, brilliantly directed. I love the screenplay. I loved everything about this. I think Marlee Matlin is tremendous in it. She won Best Actress for Children of a Lesser God in 1986. At age 21, she's the youngest Best Actress winner and is the only deaf performer to have ever won an Academy Award. And she's just tremendous in this film. I would be shocked if Coda wasn't in the 10, and I'd be
pissed. Full transparency. I wouldn't get pissed about most of these movies missing. I would be absolutely pissed if Coda missed. I'd be so mad.
Yeah. I mean, I was about to say the exact same thing. I'd be shocked and I'd be pissed. Really, really angry.
It'd just be
because
so sad.
It's just a tremendous film. The next film on our list is from Guillermo del Toro, and it's Nightmare Alley. It's a 25 to 1 shot to win Best Picture. Again, that's very, very unlikely. An ambitious carny with a talent for manipulating people with a few well-chosen words hooks up with a female psychiatrist who is even more dangerous than he is. Distributed by Walt Disney Studios Motion Pictures, starring Bradley Cooper, Cate Blanchett, Toni Collette. This, I was...
Yes, I agree.
Do you know what I'm trying to say? In terms of its award, it's got a Critics' Choice, nominated for Best Picture. It's in the National Board Review Top 10. This, to me, isn't a Best Picture nominee, and I don't think it's one that will get in. I had it on my list. I saw it quite prominent in the betting, that 25 to 1 shot, and I was really, it's a good film. It has a lot to offer. I think the cinematography is lovely.
Sure.
But I'm not convinced in this season that Nightmare Alley one is going to get in and two should be in. What's your thoughts on Nightmare Alley? And
Yeah, I agree with you. However, I think that it's in that 10, 11, 12 slot, closer to the 11, 12. Like, I would still have this over French Dispatch, you know, but I don't think I would have it ahead of Being the Ricardos or Tragedy Macbeth. Like, I mean, which makes sense because that's kind of the order we've been going for. But yeah, it has Critics' Choice, it has AFI, it has NBR, has the Writers Guild, which is that's a good one. But yeah, it you know, I think people were really expecting big things from it. I think it has a good shot to get like 4 or 5 nominations, probably in those tech categories. I can definitely see it getting in for cinematography, production design, maybe even that's probably it. Yeah, I mean, I guess it could get in for sound, maybe costumes, but I don't see this as a Best Picture nominee unless people are like, oh, we love Guillermo del Toro, which, like, obviously we do. But it doesn't feel like the 10th slot if we're fighting for that. It would have needed the Globe or the SAG, and it's not even long listed to my knowledge for the picture, director, or screenplay. And that would have been very helpful for it, I think. Yeah,
I totally agree. I mean, I think Nightmare Alley's on the outside looking in, and I think it's going to stay on the outside. It's not going to get in my opinion, but a film that is definitely getting in. And I'm really excited to hear your thoughts on it. Well, I kind of know your opinion. This is one of the best films of the year. If you haven't seen it, see it on the biggest screen possible. It's a 20-1 shot to win Best Picture, and it's Dune. I'll let you guys know what this film is about. It's a feature adaptation of Frank Herbert's science fiction novel about the son of a noble family entrusted with the protection of the most valuable asset and most vital element in the galaxy. This is an absolute nominations juggernaut. It's just getting nominations all over the place, and this is the kind of film that, I've done a bit of maths, it's going to get potentially double-digit nominations.
Oh, definitely.
Before I bring you in, Max, it's distributed by Warner Brothers Pictures. Denis Villeneuve is the director. Music by Hans Zimmer. What a score. And then you've got Timothée Chalamet, Rebecca Ferguson, Zendaya, Oscar Isaac, Josh Brolin, Stellan Skarsgård, Jason Momoa, Javier Bardem. Before I waffle any further, tell our lovely listeners what you made of Dune, and also what you think its Oscars chances are on the back of this ludicrously good resume.
Yeah, it has not technically, it has the best resume of any film. It has 19 nominations or wins or long lists, like, combined, I guess. Next up, I think, would be West Side Story. So, like, this missing would be it just actually wouldn't make sense. It's gonna get in, and it's probably gonna win a good chunk, I think. Is it gonna win Best Picture? Probably not. But, I mean, it's gotten everywhere that makes sense. Like, I didn't necessarily expect it to get SAG. That would have, like, been, like,
shocking.
Someone recently said, like, oh yeah, but it got stunts. I'm like, okay, sure. So did whatever else did, but they're not up for Best Picture.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, to me, that doesn't count as, like, an indicator of Best Picture, personally. But yeah, Dune's amazing. I mean, it's just so freaking good. And you watch it and you're like, oh, well, that's just amazing. And yeah, it's getting in. It's not gonna win. But it has the most. It has the most everything. By a solid amount.
Yeah, I mean, in my notes, I can see it getting nominated for picture, director, possibly adapted screenplay, cinematography, production design, costume design, film editing, which you would think makes it a more likely winner than a 20-1 shot. Makeup and hairstyling, sound, visual effects, original score. If my maths is correct, that's 11 categories. And I couldn't help but think this film... My stance on this, Max, is very, very clear.
Yep.
If this was a complete movie, if this was... I mean, the running time, for example, on this is 2 hours 35. Say they made this like a Titanic and they made it 3 hours plus.
Oh, I would have loved it.
And they finished it, right? It's winning Best Picture, in my opinion. If it's a complete film, it's winning Best Picture. So I can only think about other films that have been split into 3 parts, and the thing that came to my mind was the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
That's exactly right.
The first film, The Fellowship of the Ring, received 13 Oscar noms, winning 4. The second film, The Two Towers, received 6 nominations, winning 2. But here's the key part. The third film, The Return of the King, 11 Oscar nominations, 11 wins, tying Titanic and Ben-Hur for the most Oscars won, as well as setting a new record for the highest clean sweep at the Oscars. Now, I don't know how many films there's going to be, whether it's going to be 2 or 3. I'm not 100% sure, but I think the future content from the Dune universe, so to speak, is going to be very much like Lord of the Rings and a player. I don't think it's a Best Picture winner this year. Let's just tear up our predictions and go home if Dune isn't nominated. Because...
Yeah, it mathematically would make absolutely no sense and be like, all right, pundits, critics, festivals, and guilds, you mean nothing.
Let's all just go home. Unless you've got anything else to say about Dune, I think it's going to be nominated upward of 8, 9, possibly 11 categories. It could win 5 or 6 of those. And rightly so. If you haven't seen it, go and see it. It's still available in the UK. I know we've got listeners in the States. Get into your Dolby and your IMAX and go and enjoy it. And another film that I would recommend, I saw this at the London Film Festival, is King Richard. Yes. Dune was a 20-1 shot. And King Richard's actually... according to the bookmakers, more likely to win Best Picture because it's a 16-1 shot. And what is this film about? Well, it's a look at how tennis superstars Venus and Serena Williams became who they are after the coaching from their father, Richard Williams. Distributed by Warner Brothers, directed by Zach Baylin, starring Will Smith, John Bernthal, Sania Sidney, Demi Singleton, and Anjanou Ellis. Do you know what? When I saw this at the London Film Festival, I was nervous because I love my tennis. I love the Williams sisters. I think they've been inspirational to the sport of tennis, to women's sport, to sport in general. And I went in nervous. I'd heard the buzz about Will Smith. And this film... I've only seen it the once and I need to rewatch it. Again, we talk about ticking boxes. It's done that with its awards resume. But when you watch it, it makes you feel good. It makes you laugh. It makes you cry. I was a big fan of King Richard. I think it's looking pretty secure for a nomination. What's your thoughts on King Richard? Where's it slip into this 10 sort of for you?
Yeah, like Dune, which I didn't even forgot to say, King Richard is in the 5. I think I'm that confident in those being in there. Like if we're going like 1 is somewhere, but like 1, 2, 3 are somewhere like between Belfast, West Side, and Power of the Dog. I would have 4, 5, 6, King Richard and Dune probably right in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you think about it, like you have Belfast, you have Coda, you have King Richard, you have Licorice Pizza. All those with like, some exceptions in there somewhere, but like are like you feel good after kinda. Which is kind of important for what the world wants right now, especially America. And like Don't Look Up, it's like it's political. Last year Nomadland, very right on where we needed the world. Parasite, the world was just like a shit show, so like it's like we're going between classes. It's like and Green Book, you're talking about the Cheeto who was our president, and like it's everything is like political, everything is like there for a purpose. And I think King Richard is a really, really wonderful film. Will Smith is probably going to win his Oscar.
Yeah.
I think it's between him and Garfield. People love the Williams sisters, as they should. Serena Williams is arguably the greatest athlete of all time. Forget male or female. So people want to see it. People are seeing it, whether or not the box office says so. And people are enjoying it. A lot of people are enjoying it. It's getting in. Will it win? No. I mean, anything's possible. But, it has PGA, critics, AFI, NBR, ACE, WGA. It has everything you need. It would be shocking. Everything this season is kind of like 1 through 8.
Yeah.
Everything is like, these are all getting in. And if they don't, it wouldn't make sense. And King Richard definitely falls in for the 1 through 8, I think.
Yeah.
Where are you at? Do you...
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I think it should be in the 10. I think it will be in the 10. Its resume, again, as pundits and lovers of the Oscars, we would have to tear up all our notes and go home if it didn't get in. It wouldn't make sense. And like you said, you've got that three-headed monster, and this is sitting like 4 or 5 for me. Because I remember leaving the theatre at the London Film Festival and tweeting, and the first thing I said was, "This is getting SAG Ensemble." Like, that's how I felt when I left the theatre. I mean, Will Smith gives a tremendous performance. Obviously, you've got Benedict Cumberbatch there, who's in behind with Andrew Garfield. You've obviously got Denzel in that category, maybe Javier Bardem. As it is every year, it's a strong category. Will Smith is the betting favourite. So from a betting perspective and a bookmaker's perspective, and the bookmakers Vegas usually doesn't get this wrong. Usually, they sometimes do. They're expecting Will Smith to win. So look, I think King Richard is a very, very solid nomination. If it won SAG Ensemble, maybe those odds are going to come down, and maybe you can start having a conversation. But we'll get on to potentially who's going to win SAG Ensemble. But before we do that, here's what I'm thinking. So this comes in at 14-1. This next film, which is quite low odds for a film that the betting odds are sometimes confusing. This is suggesting that this film has a better chance of winning Best Picture than King Richard and all the other previous films, and that's Drive My Car. It was picked as the Japanese entry for Best International Feature Film for the 94th Academy Awards, making the December 2021 shortlist. The synopsis is as followed, and excuse me if I get the name wrong here. Yasuki Kafuku is a stage actor and director happily married to his playwright wife. Then one day she disappears. I haven't seen this film. Max, I know you haven't seen this one either. So forgive us for perhaps brushing over this one. I think this looks like a very solid contender for Best International Feature. I was on Next Best Pictures website today. Mr. Matt Neglia, I know you're a good friend of Matt and a fan of his work. He has this as number 1. He has Drive My Car for Best International Feature, I should say, not Best Picture. He has Drive My Car as 1, The Worst Person in the World 2, A Hero 3, 4, Flea 5, The Hand of God. So, what's your thoughts? Could we see a Parasite-esque? No. Okay.
I mean, listen, again, anything is possible, but if you look at, literally, I have Parasite pulled up. Parasite, it won International Globe, directed for Golden Globe nominee, Golden Globe screenplay, SAG, BAFTA director, PGA, critics, AFI, DGA, ACE, WGA, USC, ADG. It's and no offense to Drive My Car, I haven't seen it yet, and I can't make any personal assessments, but just statistically and the facts are, it just doesn't have anywhere near that. Yeah. Could it maybe pull in a Cold War director nomination? Maybe. Yeah. But I would be pretty freaking surprised if it somehow beat out something like Tragedy Macbeth, being in the Ricardos, or maybe even a couple of these others. I would even probably have Nightmare Alley before I would have Drive My Car. And that's not a personal preference. That's just like it just doesn't have the numbers to back it up.
Yeah.
But that's not taking away its merit because I, A, haven't seen it. B, I'm not taking away from it because I don't have any opinion of it.
Yeah.
It would be very, very shocking. So I'm actually surprised at how high it is,
yeah.
which is great for it. That would be so exciting. I would love to see another international film get in here. That'd be awesome.
I do wonder if there is that worry, you know, that Parasite Best International and then it sneaks in Best Picture. Obviously, Parasite went on to win Best Picture. I, like yourself, I can only apologise to the listeners. I haven't seen Drive My Car. I've had a pretty busy schedule. I've seen everything else on this list. But what I would say is it's not in my 10 from a statistical analysis. But something that is in my 10 because I'm... bar a few issues I have with the movie, which I won't get into.
We're on the same page, though.
Yeah, I think we probably are. Licorice Pizza is a 14-1 shot. Max, could you just give us a brief synopsis of this
story?
Of this movie?
Yes, the story of Alana Kane and Gary Valentine growing up, running around and going through the treacherous navigation of first love in the San Fernando Valley, 1973. This film is distributed by Universal Pictures. Director is the one and only Paul Thomas Anderson. It stars Alana Haim, Cooper Hoffman, Sean Penn, Bradley Cooper, and my goodness, this film is just pure joy. It is magnificent.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, when I saw the trailer for this movie, I thought, I don't know if I'm going to like that, but as soon as I watched it, I mean, firstly, just want to say Alana Haim, Cooper Hoffman, their performances are just so natural. It's like they've been doing this for 20 years.
It felt almost like a documentary how natural they were.
Yeah,
it was amazing.
Exactly that. It felt like this was a real life relationship, friendship, however you want to look at it, and someone was just following them around with a camera.
Exactly. It was beautiful.
It's building a reasonable resume. Obviously, it was nominated for Best Picture Comedy Musical at the Globes. It gets Critics' Choice, Best Picture nomination, National Board of Review, honoured and nominated by a number of critical bodies, and it gets that PGA. And this is...
And AFI.
And oh, sorry, I must have missed that one out.
No, it's all good.
AFI as well. So that's a strong resume. But here's what I'm thinking. Paul Thomas Anderson, 8-time Oscar nominee.
Yep.
0 wins.
That is correct.
Does that hinder him? Does that help him? I'm trying to get my head round, you know, is this going to be a Best Picture nomination and a Director nomination? He's going to be 10-0? Like, how do we assess this?
I mean, okay, first of all, it's getting in for picture.
Yeah.
Like, there's no doubt. It just has everything it needs. It actually, when you do, like, the math, it has, like, the 4th or 5th highest number of just, like, nominations or wins when it comes to guilds and, like, voting, like, real, like, not real, but the Globes, the BAFTAs, and all that. Will PTA get in? It is very possible. Him missing Globe wasn't helpful. Maggie Gyllenhaal, I would say, was the one who kind of like took that, which is awesome. But he has the DGA,
yes,
which is really big. BAFTA long list, and obviously he's also Critics' Choice. Is this going to win Best Picture? No, probably not. But it, again, I would argue is in the 5 or 6. 1, 2, 3, not 1, 2, 3. We've gone over ad nauseum. It's somewhere in that 4, 5, 6 area, I think. So yeah, you said at the beginning, this is a 3-horse race. It's kind of like, what else is going to happen, and how many other nominations are these films going to get? Licorice Pizza is going to get in. I'm more curious if we'll see PTA get in for director, and I really hope Alana gets in somehow.
Yeah, I mean, that's unlikely. But
oh yeah, it definitely is. But I'm still hopeful.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to have hope. But it's a brilliant performance. It's you know, you break it down technically as well.
She has the Globe and Critics' Choice, and she's BAFTA long list. So like, if she gets the BAFTA, 100%.
Yeah. I mean,
but it would be that's not likely. I know.
Yeah. I mean, the great thing about award season is that you can make a narrative for, you know, lots of things to happen, and it's brilliant to see how they unfold. But again, Licorice Pizza, it's a 14-1 chance. Do I think it will win Best Picture? No. Do I think it will be nominated? Yes, I do. Its resume would suggest that it's holding a really, really strong hand. Now we're getting down to the business end of the list, where the meat is on the bone, the salad is on the dressing, and we're into Belfast is the next film on our list. That comes in at an 11-4 shot. So you notice the difference there. You're looking at 14-1 Licorice Pizza, but then Belfast is 11-4. So the bookmakers think Belfast is a much more likely winner, one of the favourites. What's this film about? Well, a young boy and his working class family experience the tumultuous late 1960s in Belfast. Distributed by Focus Features, directed by Kenneth Branagh, starring Jude Hill, Katarina Balfe, Jamie Dornan, Judi Dench and Kieran Hines, to name a few of the cast. Jude Hill, I did say that. I thought, oh, good Lord, I hope I haven't forgotten him. He was marvellous. In terms of its awards resume, it's got National Board of Review, a Critics' Choice Award for Best Picture, Golden Globe nominated for Best Picture Drama, SAG Ensemble, PGA. It's got a strong resume. One thing that I wanted to pick up on, it had 11 nominations at the British Independent Film Awards, and it won 0. Is that a concern for you, or how do you assess Belfast's resume? What did you think of it as a movie? What's the angle here?
No, what'd you say, BIFA?
Yeah, British Independent Film Awards.
Yeah. Sure. It not winning one is like, oh, that's kind of interesting. But it had 11 nominations.
Yes.
And again, it has everything it needs. The only reason it didn't get WGA is because it wasn't eligible. It couldn't. Yeah, thank you. I couldn't think of the word ineligible. But yeah, to me, Belfast is one of the three, which is exactly where we've been going before we even talked about it. I think most people on the planet have this as a 3-horse race. Yeah. And it's not even like last year where you're like, Nomadland is winning, and if it was anything else, it'd be really surprising. This year, it is different because I do think any of these three, I actually would probably have 2, but I'll say that at the end, would be the front runner. And I think Belfast has a really, really good shot of it. Unlike Power of the Dog, which is kind of closer, and hear me out, is to like Nomadland as far as like a slow burn is concerned. Not as far as themes, not as far as nothing like that. Just like Belfast kind of moves a little bit faster. And I think there's going to be a large group of people who would rather have Belfast, and there's going to be a really large people who also want Power of the Dog. And then there's also people like me who would vote for West Side Story out of like those three. By a lot. I would vote West Side Story. There's absolutely no comparison. But yeah, Belfast, it has as good a shot as anyone. It has 13, 14 big nominations, and it won the screenplay. But Dog winning the Globe was really, really helpful. And let's see, if you go back, Nomadland, 1 Globe, Parasite, 1 International, so sure. Green Book, did that win? Was that up for comedy or drama? What did they do?
Drama, I think.
Okay. Shape of Water was a nominee. Moonlight won for drama. So like, recent past says the winner is probably gonna win, or at least it's in the second. So I'm between Belfast and Power of the Dog in full transparency.
Yeah, that's where I'm at as well. I mean, we'll get on to, I believe, West Side Story is next. the Golden Globes, I don't want to get too much into the controversy. Things need to change. That's all I'll say on that. Big time. How much impact the Globes have this season in terms of the Oscars is only something we will be able to look back with hindsight. Do you know what I'm saying? So for me, The Power of the Dog winning Golden Globe Best Picture Drama was a big deal. And I still think that award is important. For me, 11 nominations at BIFA and winning 0 was a concern, but am I overthinking things? All I would say is Kenneth Branagh has received 5 Academy Award nominations for Best Director, Best Actor, Best Supporting Actor, Best Adapted Screenplay, and Best Live Action Short Film. 0 wins. So again, Kenneth Branagh has got a strong Oscars resume. Is he going to have a Best Picture nomination? Yes. Is he going to have a Director nomination? You would think so. So is he going to be 7 for 0 as well?
Yeah, I mean, also, it's the only film to have Globe, SAG, PGA, DGA, Critics, ACE, BAFTA long list. It's the only film.
Wow.
Everything else, like, you have Globe, SAG, PGA, Critics, WGA, ACE, BAFTA, Don't Look Up, King Richard. And then there's, like, a mix of, like, a few of these with, like, Dune, Licorice Pizza, West Side, Coda, Don't Look Up. They're all kind of sounding familiar. The only one that isn't there is Power of the Dog, but that also is because it wasn't eligible for WGA. But you would have to think if it was, it would obviously be nominated.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And the last thing I'll say about Belfast from a personal perspective, I saw this at the London Film Festival. I hated the trailer, man. I just really did not like the trailer. I went in with low expectations, came out very, very surprised at the humour. Is it a Best Picture winner? We'll get on to that because I still have some thoughts. It's definitely a 3-headed monster, and on paper it's earned its place there. But the next film we're going to talk about, I know from listening to you so far that you're a big fan.
If only you could see my face. I'm just like giddy right now with excitement.
Max is literally dancing. He's got a huge grin on his face. He looks overwhelmed with joy. He is now actually dancing. Max, give us a synopsis. Let us know what the film's about, and then dive in with why you love it so much.
Spoiler alert, but this masterpiece is an adaptation of the 1957 one of the greatest frickin' musicals of all time, West Side Story, and it explores forbidden love and the rivalry between the Jets and the Sharks. 2 teenage street gangs of different ethnic backgrounds, distributed by 20th Century Studios, directed by my favorite director, probably of all time, maybe him and Pete Docter, Steven Spielberg. Stars someone who we won't talk about, Ariana DeBose, David Alvarez, Mike Feist, Rita Moreno, Rachel Zegler, and Baby Driver, that guy. So, you know what? I can't say Ansel Elgort. I don't know I wasn't there. I don't know the details. I don't know if anything has been court ordered or whatever. So I'm gonna stay clear of that. But this movie's so good. I don't ever swear, but this movie's absolutely amazing. I take it you liked it, Max. Yeah, it was fine. I was bored the whole time. I was like, ugh, just get me out of here. The way Tony Kushner adapted the script, Cool, was about a freaking gun. It was so good. The choreography was amazing. I mean, the West Side Story is one of the most the original is one of the most celebrated films ever. Forget the Oscars. One of the most celebrated films of all time. I have heard from many people, including myself, and people who are theater lovers who have said this surpassed it.
Wow.
That's not a statement from just like a random person. These are people who have like grew up on this film.
Yeah.
Like me. And there are critics and there are pundits who say this film is better than it should have been. And forever I've been saying, it's Steven Spielberg, what did you expect? And people are like, oh yeah, but The Post and like some of his recent stuff. I'm like, okay, great, stop. It's Steven Spielberg. He has an unbelievable diverse cast. The story is now more important than ever. Good Lord. I mean, if you want to think about it as like Jews and anti-Semitism everywhere, like, and as a Jew, Steven Spielberg is a director. He's a Jew, and you could take this as black versus white, Jewish versus. There's so many ways you can take this film, and if you look at the stats, next to Dune, it has the highest number. It has Globe. It obviously won comedy musical, which, by the way, is the dumbest thing that it shouldn't. It's not two separate categories because is West Side Story a comedy? No, it is not.
No.
It has Spielberg director. You got all 3 BAFTAs. You got PGA, Critics, AFI, NBR, DGA, WGA, ADG, SDSA, CDG, MUAH, MPSE, CAS. I could just be saying the alphabet at this point.
It's got a lot of numbers and letters next to its name.
Yeah, smiley face, emoji face. It has everything it needs. It's so good. Ariana DeBose is going to win for supporting, as she should be, unless it was Ann Dowd or Martha Plimpton. She should be winning. Mike Feist should also be a frontrunner, if not winning. Rachel Zegler should be nominated. It's going to get in everywhere. Next to Dune, it's probably going to have the most nominations. Will it win? That is the question, in the words of Hamlet.
Yeah, I mean, for me...
Thank you for listening to my TED Talk.
No, honestly, I really enjoyed that, and it's great to hear people passionate about movies, and you know, it's good to hear your thoughts on West Side Story. My concern is that the original, which was 1961, I believe, I may have got that wrong, won 10 Academy Awards, making it the musical with the most Oscar wins of all time. It also won Best Picture. My angle is, can a remake, no matter how good it is, win Best Picture? I mean, we saw
that
it
is the question.
For example, A Star Is Born. For me, I don't know if you remember coming on the show last year. I don't know if I managed to mention it. A Star Is Born, I've been doing this podcast 4 years, is one of my favourite films of the last 4 years, probably of the last 10.
Magnificent film.
Probably in my top 10 of all time, maybe.
Wow.
I adored A Star Is Born, and that literally fell
awesome.
flat on its face, and I think that suffered with remake syndrome, which is something I just made up. But do you know what I mean?
But you're not wrong.
But the flip side of that is you've got DeBose is the betting favourite for supporting actress. You've obviously got Spielberg, whose name is like printed in gold in Hollywood,
as it should be.
And do you know what? It's a pretty damn good film. I'm not saying it's one that I enjoyed as much as you did, but
totally,
he has adapted it and brought something powerful and relevant and modern, but still honouring the original. For me, I'll say it now, it's a 2-horse race between The Power of the Dog and Belfast. I
agree. I
don't think West Side Story will win Best Picture. I think the price is too short. I wouldn't back it to win Best Picture. But, you know, you made a compelling case for it there. And like you said, you listed off literally the whole alphabet there of awards it's made, of nominations it's got.
The only thing it's missing is, the only big one it's missing is Ace Eddie, which again is the single, again, that was, I said at the very beginning of the show, one of the nominations that absolutely was bonkers.
Yeah.
Made no sense that it missed. And I guess ASC.
Yeah. I mean, the Ace Eddie was, film Twitter lost its mind.
It just didn't make sense.
It's a bizarre one. I don't know the rest of the nominees off the top of my head, but it was...
I mean, like, no offense to Tick, Tick, Boom, which, again, I thought was perfect. That got Ace Eddie over West Side. Yeah. And I love Tick, Tick, Boom, but there's no competition there. Like, are you absolutely kidding me?
Yeah, I know.
Sorry.
I know exactly what you're saying, but... So we've had a look. We've had a look at Belfast. We've had a look at West Side Story. What is the third head on this three-headed monster? Well, if you haven't worked it out now, you're not as smart as maybe you should be. No offense. I hope I haven't offended anyone there. It is The Power of the Dog. This is the 7-4 bookmakers' favourite. What does that mean? To put it into perspective, last year Nomadland at this time of year was the bookmakers' favourite. It went on to win. Bookmakers make money. They know what they're doing. They have it as the favourite for a reason. What's the film about? Well, charismatic rancher Phil Burbank inspires fear and awe in those around him. When his brother brings home a new wife and her son, Phil torments them until he finds himself exposed to the possibility of love. This is distributed by Netflix, directed by Jane Campion, starring Benedict Cumberbatch, Jesse Plemons, Kirsten Dunst and Cody Smith-McPhee, to name but a few. One of my upcoming episodes is going to be with Andrew Morgan from the Nomcast. We're going to do a dive into Netflix's chances come award season post-nomination. But obviously Netflix have got Tick Tick Boom, they've got Don't Look Up, and they've got the front runner in terms of The Power of the Dog. It won Best Picture Drama at the Globes. You'd think it would win Best Picture at Critics' Choice, because it just seemingly is sweeping the critics' circles. It's got AFI, PGA. What I want to say about this film, and I apologise for the long pause, is firstly, and sorry to go on a bit of a rant here, Max, I apologise to our listeners for my review of this movie. I saw this at the London Film Festival at 8 a.m. in London. I had to get up at 5:30.
That's early for this movie.
So I was up at 5:30 a.m. Had to commute into London. The film started at bang on 8 a.m. and it was at the arse end of the London Film Festival. So I'd already seen a lot of films. So the point I'm making is I wasn't in the best place for this movie. I criticised it because of its pace. I thought it had horrific pacing issues. I really struggled with it. But this is the big but. Upon a rewatch, this went from being like my number 7, 8, 9, 10 of the season to my number 1. It really, really did. Like, I completely missed the point of this movie. I missed some of the central themes. I missed some of the wonderful performances. To cut a long story short, I'm a real fan of this movie. I think it's going to win Best Picture. Max, I'm sorry to rant there, but I wanted to apologise to our listeners because I gave it a bad review. I said it was too slow and it had problems and blah, 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 blah. I was wrong. This is why a rewatch, particularly if you're analysing movies, is important. What did you make of The Power of the Dog? And do you think it's going to win Best Picture? We're at the meaty end of the conversation now.
Let me start by saying, yes, this is probably going to win Best Picture. Again, it has everything. It's won a lot.
Yeah.
It won the Best Picture. It won Director at Globe. Last year, Chloe Zhao did that for Nomadland. Yeah. And not that that's like equal to winning, because like look at Sam Mendes in 1917, it won both but didn't win. So it's gonna win. What I think of the movie, I thought the movie was fine. I recently had a chat with a bunch of film people, and I actually literally said to them, can you please explain to me why this is sweeping and why it's doing so well? And they went into like, I would say an hour-long discussion on the film. Yeah. And so I want to like keep, not my thoughts to myself, but I just need to give it another watch because I think I'll be like you. Because the first watch, I was like, sure, it's fine. It also took me 3 days to get through it. Like I really struggled with it for some reason. Yeah. But I listened to, one of the people was Eric from Awards Watch. Yeah. And, you know, they were talking and they were just saying, just they were explaining some very deep things that are written into the text that you don't really, that I just didn't get.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious. That doesn't mean that I'm going to get it or that I'll like whatever. But to me, it was a very fine movie. I thought the score was magnificent.
Yes.
My goodness, Johnny Greenwood is having himself a year. And between that and Spencer, come on. I mean, Jesus.
Yeah.
But it's the favorite. I don't see myself moving it unless BAFTA somehow goes to Belfast.
Yeah, I mean,
but because when you compare the two, they're pretty much even. The only thing Belfast has is SAG. But they both, for the most part, have the same stuff. And Power of the Dog is just the winner, I think. And it'll be Netflix's first Best Picture win.
Yeah, and Andrew Morgan of the Nomcast will be delighted with that. I mean, I think a rewatch would be useful because, like I said,
no, I'm going to.
What you were saying about people giving you that 1 hour deep dive, the film is like an onion. It's very layered.
Definitely.
It's so meta. There's so many metaphors in there. There's so much to unpack. And like I said, I just completely missed it on the first watch. There's also this great scene where Jesse Plemons reads a sauce bottle label, and it's just compelling on a side note. But I think, some people will say, oh dear, you spoke for an hour and 20 minutes and all you can come up with is The Power of the Dog's going to win Best Picture.
It has the resume.
It has the resume. It's the favourite for a reason. And dare I say it, it's probably one of my favourite, probably my favourite of the year. Like you said, the Johnny Greenwood score is mesmerising. His work on Spencer as well was truly incredible. Just want to say, I was a big fan of, on social media, I've not put anti-Christian Stewart stuff, but I have been quite vocal about the fact that I think Lady Gaga is going to win the Oscar. I will say that again on the podcast. Max looks absolutely flabbergasted. I think she'll win SAG, and I think she'll take the Oscar. That's my opinion. Call me crazy.
Wow.
I thought I'd sneak that into the show. I think the SAG Ensemble was a real show of strength for her and the rest of the cast of House of Gucci. But the point I'm trying to make is... I don't know what the point I was trying to make, but I've just gone on a bit of a side tangent there. But I suppose the point I'm trying to make in my rant, and Max is still getting over that Lady Gaga, is that anything can happen in award season. The Johnny Greenwood score, that's where I was at, is brilliant. And it was great in Spencer, and I know I've been a little bit vocal about Christian Stewart's SAG snub and this kind of stuff on Twitter, but it's all in good fun. I think the best picture will go to The Power of the Dog. But are you surprised? I know it wasn't in the script. It wasn't what we were going to talk about. Are you surprised about my Lady Gaga prediction?
Yeah, you just have the feeling. Which I totally get.
Well, actually, let me blow your mind a little bit more.
I'm not saying she doesn't have the stats. She's one of the few to have Globe, SAG, BAFTA, and Critics' Choice. So you can back yourself up, and I'm with you. But I'm just surprised.
So I'm still a bit butthurt that she didn't win for A Star Is Born, and I have this sort of. I was team Glenn Close, by the way, but so I understand. Yeah, I've just got a, the stats are there to back it up, but I've just got a feeling. I'm also not ruling out Bradley Cooper for Licorice Pizza.
I would be so confused.
It would be one of the strangest Oscar wins with the amount of screen time, but he does get nominated for the Screen Actors Guild in Best Supporting Actor. And it just fascinates me.
Wait, you think he's getting wait, as a nomination or a win?
I think he's going to get nominated for the Oscar, and I wouldn't rule out him winning.
And I love Bradley Cooper. If Bradley Cooper gets in over almost anyone, specifically Jason Isaacs, which obviously is not happening because he hasn't gotten anything, I will lose my mind. Mike Feist. Oh my God, there's no comparison.
So to summarise, basically, I'm still butthurt that Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga didn't win for A Star Is Born. I have this crazy theory that they might get compensation for that, and it would be one of the bizarre sort of Oscar stories. Bradley Cooper,
but it'd be a really cool story, though. That'd be interesting.
It would be a really cool story. So there you have it, folks. We have, and I do apologise for my ramblings at the end, but
I enjoyed it.
When I'm with someone like Max talking Oscars, I can't help but just get passionate. And Max, I just want to say thank you so much for joining me on this first episode of this year's Road to the Oscars series. Max, it's been an honour to dive into this Best Picture race with you. Please just briefly remind our listeners where they can find you one more time.
Definitely. And again, it was a privilege. I'm honored that I was get to be the first person. Wow. This made my day. You can find me on YouTube at youtube.com/MaxJosephFilmPerson. And then Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd at mjoseph492. And also make sure you are obviously subscribed to Is It Worth It and follow them because it's a really great show.
Thank you very much, Max. Appreciate that. And you can also find us on social media. We're on Twitter at Film Is Worth It. You can also find us on Facebookery and Instagram. Just search for Is It Worth It, the film review podcast. And please email the show at mymail.isworthit@isitworthitpodcast.com. That email address again, mymail.isworthit@isitworthitpodcast.com. I just want to say we absolutely love receiving your emails. Laureline, the Gaming Bear, some regular listeners. On one of our last episodes with Craig, we got quite emotional because we had such wonderful emails from our listeners. So please do interact with us via email, tweet us, Facebook us, Instagram us, send us a carrier pigeon, whatever you deem appropriate. It's been great to have Max on. Hopefully we can do this again next year. We did it last year. The next episode is going to be, and a little drum roll, is going to be Oscar nomination reactions with Mike, and Oscar. I'm a big fan of Mike, and Oscar. They've become good friends. We're planning to do something shortly after the Oscar noms are announced. So we've got that lined up. Then we've got Andrew Morgan of the Nomcast coming on to do a Netflix special where we're going to analyse all of Netflix nominations, look at how many nominations it's got as a percentage compared to last year. We're going to look at, Max, how many Netflix nominations are going to be transferred into wins, make some predictions there. I've also got Amy Smith coming on to talk about director and a few other...
I love Amy Smith.
Big shout out to Amy Smith. I hope she's listening. She's coming on. And then a few special guests, which I'll keep up my sleeve. But it's been an absolute honour spending time with you. I've been David Long. He's been Max Joseph. And this has been Road to the Oscars. We will be in your ears again very soon. Tatty bye.